Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Women's running. Women's running stories. You are listening to Women's Running Stories. I am your host and producer, Cherie Louise Turner, and this is Andrea.
I think we can get so caught up in personal bests and, running is about the shape or size of what you look like. It's really not. And it's quite life-changing. I think for most people, you become more interested in your health, your diet. A Friday and a Saturday night is completely different now. If you've got that appetite for just enjoying the health and fitness and, of a run and the community that brings, it's definitely something that once you get involved in it, there really is no looking back. Hi, Andrea from Silver Cloud Adventures, which was a platform I created really to just capture my running journey, I guess, really. I was quite a late starter to running, 2016, and then since then completed over sort of 50 races, some of them on an international level. So I think I'm best known really for probably combining an opportunity to travel with being outside and running.
Yes, so this episode of Women's Running Stories features the running journey of Andrea from the UK. Her story is very much about combining her love of running with her love of travel and the unique joys and motivation that combination brings. And as you'll hear, these are both loves that she shares with her daughter. But before we get into Andrea's story, I do want to welcome you to Women's Running Stories, the podcast where women share stories about their running experiences. I am Cherie Louise Turner, and I am the host of this podcast. And I'm really excited about this story because I myself am also an avid traveler, and I do a lot of running when I travel. So when I talked to Andrea about having her story on the podcast, this was one of the things I was most excited about with her story, was this combination of traveling and running. So yeah, let's get into Andrea's story. A couple things to know. Her first running goal was to complete 50 races, which she did. And now she's embarked on her latest challenge, which you're going to hear all about. And before we dive in, there are a few details I wanted to clarify. One is she mentions the TT on the Isle of Man, and the TT is a very famous motorcycle racing event, and it was started back in 1906, so it's been going on for well over 100 years. Andrea also mentions the Eden Project in Cornwall, and it's a visitor attraction, and it's best known for these enormous dome structures, and each one of them features a biome, which is basically a specific type of environment, and each of these biomes features all of the plant life that would be in that type of environment. So, for instance, it is home to the world's largest indoor rainforest, and also on the grounds there is a botanical garden. So yeah, very cool stuff, especially if you are into plants. All right, now let's get to it. Let's hear about the travel and running adventures of Andrea, beginning with her first running experiences and challenge. Here is Andrea.
Between 2016, when I first started running, to 2021, I wanted to complete 50 races. That was my challenge at the time. I mean, I can remember when I first started out, I think I appreciated that, having a quality sports bra and having some quality trainers was my two go-tos for a woman. And that was all I needed. And as you become more involved in the running, you then go for whatever it is you need to build up on, rather than think you've got to spend a fortune right at the beginning. You just need the basics just to give you that confidence that you can sustain a run or learn a little bit about how to progress from there. So it's about starting off with the basics and just accepting the journey and trust the process. And it's, looking back from when I first started to now, I didn't know the different types of brands and sportswears. I mean, there's ones I'll wear now that I will always, they're my go-tos because I find them the most comfortable. And yet there's so many out there sort of, boasting that theirs are the best but it's what works for you. And that's, I think, really what's important. So I worked my way up and, developed my skills and knowledge in running from a very much a novice runner. And the 50th race itself, I'd aimed to be in the Rocky Mountains. It started in the town of Canmore, just south of Banff. And yeah, that was the route. It took itself along the river and towards Banff and up into some of the mountains. It was strange, really, because it was the first run I'd ever done where I carried a bear bell and some bear spray. And I thought it was a bit of a joke, really, when people were sort of saying you need bear spray and you need a bear bell. And I thought I'm going to look like such a typical tourist, but was very much mindful that other runners were actually carrying this stuff as well. So that was quite an experience. That was in September of 2021. Very lucky to have been there. The world was just waking up after lockdown. So it was definitely a humbling experience. I was very fortunate to be able to compete in that race. But yeah, it was certainly very different. The running challenge that I'm currently undergoing is the Alphabet Challenge. And this challenge came about really as a result of when my daughter, she graduated university, has sort of left the family home, if you like. And then it was something we decided to do sort of as a mother-daughter experience. So that started around about 2021, 22, I believe. I'm very lucky to have a very close relationship with my daughter. Anyone that knows me will know that, my daughter and I, we're very much have a passion for traveling. Been very lucky to have been able to take her to various places around the world since she was little, and very much encouraged that sense of adventure and developed that thirst for sort of nature since she was very tiny. So that's something that we've always had very special between us. So we very much get on. There's never any bickering. We haven't got that sort of relationship. We're very much, I encourage learning and just being humble about life, really, and interested in, cultures and people and communities, and just, there's long tradition of sort of going traveling in search of things that we all may lack sometimes. And I think sometimes, we develop that sort of thirst for nature, adventure, traveling. So we sort of develop this opportunity as we're very much have a passion for traveling. And we decided that in order to have that sort of quality time, we would incorporate something productive, constructive to do when we met up. So both being interested in running and traveling, we decided to combine this opportunity to have a theme to work to. So we created this Alphabet Challenge to literally find places, whether that be within the UK or internationally, that had the letter of the alphabet within the medal. So it came about really as a result of some option of an alternative way of meeting up and having quality time. Clearly, she's younger than me, so clearly there's always going to be her seeing me coming over the finish line as opposed to me seeing her coming over the finish line. But, it's always been good fun and always been that sort of opportunity to reflect on the run afterwards, go for a nice meal and you talk it through and you're absolutely exhausted, and whether you had the right shoes on, you were happy with the kit you were wearing, why that run was particularly enjoyable, whether it's training. I mean, we're always talking about training plans that we are doing that meets our own needs. We're different ages at the end of the day. So, you have to embrace that and just encourage each other for wherever you're at. So it's always been very exciting. The idea of planning another adventure together is always exciting. And we know there's always going to be something completely different. but it's always good fun. We always laugh quite a lot, really, and it's being able to just appreciate that, a journey itself doesn't have to be the other side of the world. It can be something just sort of up the road, but the fact that you've enjoyed it together and able to sort of discuss the challenge and how you felt, from the aspect of the traveling or encountering whatever you encountered about nature on the way has always been something that we've very much enjoyed, really, as sort of mother-daughter. So the opportunity to continue with that journey into traveling, running, the outdoor time is something that was very much going to be on the agenda. Personally speaking, I very much enjoy that flow state when you're absorbed so much in an activity that you sort of lose track of time. And running is that sort of avenue that I think gives that. But what I hadn't considered, and we're starting to learn as we develop and get more mileage in, is the preparation, the planning, the fueling strategy, and just the learning and developing about yourself, really. Obviously aging and having to maintain that ability to train and to exercise, being aware of what nutrition you will need, and having that healthy balance between enjoying it but also challenging yourself as well. Okay, so the first race to kick it off really was Athens, being sort of the birthplace of Pheidippides and the birthplace of marathons, if you like. So that was where it all started, and this was very much going to be a road race. So it was very much road shoes. It was considering perhaps the scenery, taking in the capital. It was about making the start of the challenge to be something to remember. With regards to the actual list of letters, the race medal needed to have that letter in it. So this one happened to show that it had Athens in it, so it worked really well. In relation to mileage and distance, so far the maximum mileage has been 15 miles, but there is definitely an intention to create more opportunity for marathons and ultra races as well in the future. So ideally, when it comes to doing the research, budget is obviously an issue, a consideration, but then also areas that you've never been to before, whether that be within the UK, in Europe, or further afield, and whether you can combine that with, you're there on a holiday anyway, or you're there visiting for other reasons, then you can combine perhaps a race in that particular area. So the actual discovery of places is all part of the journey, really, and it's all been very much something that you enjoy doing, as opposed to, not letting it become a chore. Interestingly, I found the letter J really difficult because, I was looking at different countries and the letter K as well. We haven't gone any further than K, so there's nothing sort of penciled in as an idea. Try not to plan too far ahead because, it's nice to look at what's right in front of you, to learn a little bit about that particular area and being able to sort of measure your success a little bit, really, to actually be able to achieve one of them, get that satisfaction, rather than just quickly move on to the next number, and it just then becomes a bit of a tick list. But I think initially trying to actually identify an area, a country, a city with the letter J and K was quite tough without it becoming just a tick list. If you're not careful, you're just literally looking through, internet searches to try and find somewhere beginning with that letter. And it became a little bit, then this isn't what it was about, Athens was a great place to start, but it was never going to be about a tick list of amazing places to visit. And a combination of road and trails is what it's been mainly. I mean, it started as very much as, is it going to be just road races? And then by the time we've got to the letter G, for example, the letter G was the Galazzo Mountain in Mallorca. And that was the very first trail race that I'd ever competed in. And I found that really, really hard. It was definitely the hardest race I think I've ever done. That was about 1,000 meters above sea level, quite a large elevation gain. The scenery was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. You could see over the village of Capdeia and Calva, and Palmer in the distance. So that in itself was an amazing letter to achieve. But that was my first experience of appreciating that there's a mandatory kit list. Never expected to have to carry an emergency blanket. You know, it was completely different from what we had considered right at the start of the letter A. I thought it was going to be about road runs, something very much about community, lots of entrants surrounding you, there being supporters en route, aid stations, but this was quite raw insofar it was a real trail run. You know, at times you were just relying on a bit of red tape tied to the branch of a tree or a rock. And it was really hard to stay focused. You know, I was absolutely physically and mentally tired. And I was absolutely amazed by the speed in which other competitors were able to embark on the run itself. So it's been very varied, you know, that I can't really say that they're all the same. We purposely wanted variety and also just to enjoy it. I think sometimes we can get so caught up in a race, you know, are we going to get a PB, rather than combining that enjoyment of the reason why we run. So the actual challenge itself, I never wanted it to be something that would just quickly go through from A to Z without actually looking back on the journey and thinking, wow, you know, that particular run was because this happened or what have you. So it's been exceptionally varied so far. You know, I'm very much somebody who enjoys a journey. And I think sometimes a run, you know, in a sense, is one of the smallest journeys that we can often undertake, you know, if you want to compare it with a typical holiday. And when you're in that journey, I always feel that you can sort of wander more freely. And sometimes, you know, we all need to sort of turn our back on the car and, you know, and attempt a more simpler life. And I think running can definitely give us that. So having the opportunity sort of to choose these letters of the alphabet has enabled me to see more places, appreciate more places. And like, you know, we don't always necessarily consider to go to these locations. So, for example, the letter B was a place called Bingley in Bradford. And this area is sort of a market town, sort of the north of Bradford in North Yorkshire. I suppose the most famous fact about Bingley was it's got an amazing canal, and it's known for its 5 rise locks with its particular canal area that is really beautiful, really worth seeing. And it's probably a location I wouldn't have considered going, or unless you have a particular appetite for the canals or that particular area of the country, I wouldn't even appreciated that it was even there. So very much in contrast with the Athens race, which was very much large and aligned with sort of the birthplace of running. Bingley was something completely different, which was a lot more humble, quite quaint. And I guess what I learned from that one is that it was very much running alongside the towpath along the canal. A lot of gravel, a lot of grass, very scenic, very, as I say, very sweet. The area, pretty flat as well, so it wasn't particularly challenging. But it was the first time I'd ever experienced an out and back race. So literally from the starting point along the canal, you just kept going and up these particular locks, which were, some of them are quite steep in places, to then turn around and come back again. And I found that quite boring. The idea of going all the way out and then all the way back again on the same route wasn't the most exciting, but that's what you learn, isn't it? You learn that what you like and what you perhaps don't want to necessarily do that one. But, you know, the actual landscape and the beauty of it made the run, I suppose, because, you know, you can see sort of the richer side of wildlife, the old towns. You know, whilst the race itself, the route might not have been what I would have particularly have chosen, you do get to see some locations that perhaps you wouldn't have necessarily considered before. So Bingley in Bradford was definitely a place that was different. I really enjoyed it, but didn't particularly enjoy that out and back aspect, which, if that's what you like in a race, may be great. But for those people perhaps who prefer a loop, a particular route, you know, sometimes that can be a little bit more, a little bit more rewarding, I suppose, on the mind as you're trying to sort of stay focused on the run. In relation to choosing, I guess, I mean, trying to go through the alphabet, thinking of places, is always quite a challenge. Obviously, the further along the alphabet that you go, you've got to think of a location, whether that's a city, a country, or a particular name on a medal, for instance. I guess, at the very beginning, it was the excitement of, right, where's a country or where's a city that belongs with that letter? What can I learn from that place? Is it in my budget to get there? The letter C was Copenhagen, and this was so Copenhagen's about 90 meters above sea level, and it's a pretty flat course. It's known for its sort of being flat and fast and a place to get your PBs. And this was very much a road run. It was very much a large, I think it's probably best part of 20,000 entrants. So compared to what we'd just done in Bingley and Bradford, which was more of a small local community race, this was massive. And again, it was a completely different type of experience. Lots of crowds. To be honest, I found it a little bit too much at times. Highly, spectator friendly, but just constant from the minute you left, from the minute you got back to the, got to the finish line. It was just full of people cheering, shouting, bands playing, lovely. And, your flags flying, lining the streets. It was absolutely beautiful. You got to see some very famous, the best of sort of the Danish capital, the lakes and King's Square and the old stock exchange, really historical sites. But it was just so busy. And personally, I found that quite too much. It was a mental overload. So yeah, it has been so varied, really. And sometimes it's nice. It can distract you from, nicely distract you from, thinking about your pace or whether you feel comfortable. But sometimes you can, it helps you get into that sort of flow state to just, immerse yourself in the run. There's no two races that are the same insofar as support. I've taken part in races in the heat. I'm very much a fan of running in the heat. I know not everybody is, but the hotter the better. I absolutely love running in the summer. And I've run in areas where people have come out of their houses with their hose pipes and they've sprayed down the runners as they've gone past the houses. And that's always been an amazing feeling of that community spirit where the local people are really supporting, the runners, because naturally so people run for all sorts of different reasons, don't they? And some of these runners are raising money for charities and good causes that the local people are sort of embracing that as well. So that's always been, that was really nice. And I think also, the race I took part in for the letter E was the Eden Project in Cornwall. And the community there was very much all about the Eden Project itself, if you like. So, the landscape of the area, the sort of the pathway that meanders into the biomes at the actual Eden Project at the end of the area of the finish line. And the support there, I think, is that if you're interested in the Eden Project and the local area, then I guess the feeling is that the supporters really embrace that because they're also interested in what that tells you as well about the area. So, I think running in the city is very different than running in more rural areas. I think, that within the cities, there's more likely to be, there's bands playing, there's sort of big companies who are promoting their marketing, their, sportswear or their sports drinks or what have you. Whereas the local running, it appears to be a lot more inclusive of people who just enjoy the outdoors, whether you're a runner, a hiker, a walker, it's somebody who really does appreciate the value of having, fresh air and somewhere outside to, feel at peace, if you like. Yes, so the latest run that I've completed was in the Isle of Man, so that was the letter I, and that one was quite an important one to me, really, because I'm very much a motorbike enthusiast, and as you probably well know, the Isle of Man is known for the TT race, so that was a really exciting one to complete, and some of the route embarked on the area that the TT would actually take place. So the letter I has been completed, and the next race to take for me is Jerez in Spain. So this is Jerez de la Frontera, which is near Cadiz in Spain. And this is the Sherry Marathon. So this takes very much into the roots of the bodegas, the wineries, and very much known for its sort of Andalusian horses, the flamenco. It starts in the city centre, as I say, takes you onto some of these vineyards. So that one I'm really looking forward to. That's the letter J. And yeah, it will be definitely a scenic run, probably very much a culinary experience in itself. And again, I found that some of the races that are internationally, their support, their aid stations are very different than that in the UK. It's very much about sort of local produce. There's been chocolate and cakes, sandwiches, sometimes to the extent that you're almost expected to sort of pull up a seat and sit down and, join a community halfway through a run. That most people, like with most races, you've got to quickly grab something and you just keep going, whether that's protein balls or fruit or chocolate bars, that sort of thing. But always has been very much a variety. But I think for me, definitely the best ones are always abroad. I always like the opportunities to try something different, and they always seem to be very varied. And interestingly, I always find that one of the big problems with, a race day itself is that we're often there when we have a mission to complete, don't we? We're focused on the race. We've got that mindset of being focused on completing something, challenging ourselves to, be the best version of ourselves, for want of a better phrase. And I often think we're unable to always notice that we're surrounded by sometimes some of the most interesting people and the rewarding sort of signs, if you like, of the modern world. And I think I've tried to sort of remind myself about that when I run, is that running just for the sake of running and enjoying a run is quite important, because on race day we tend to be more focused on everything else but the scenery around us. So, I've definitely learned to enjoy the run a bit more, sort of remind yourself why you're running in the first place, and not get too caught up in having to always, get the ultimate fastest time. It's about just appreciating the fact that you can run and you're able to, and not to take that for granted. And, I guess now it's always that opportunity is wherever you travel to, it's now knowing that the trainers will always go in the suitcase first or in the rucksack. I see running now as another opportunity for transport, and seeing running as an opportunity to sightsee. So, whilst you might go on a holiday for a completely different reason, incorporating a run whilst on that holiday is definitely something now that we will do. I don't think I'd ever not take my trainers, to be honest.
I am totally with Andrea on this one. My running shoes are always with me when I travel. And that does bring us to the end of Andrea's story on the podcast. Thank you so much, Andrea, for coming on the show and telling your story. You clarified for me so many of the reasons why I love to combine traveling and running. And one other thing I will mention, another reason why I was excited to get Andrea's story, is because I am doing my own alphabet challenge, but mine is focused on parkrun. And so the goal with my husband and I is that we will do a parkrun that starts with every letter of the alphabet. This challenge is slightly different than the one that Andrea is doing, in that we are not doing this in order from A to Z. Regardless, I absolutely resonated with her experiences about going to new places that you wouldn't normally have gone to, running in areas that you maybe wouldn't have explored otherwise, and running courses that are, or sometimes are not, your cup of tea, but always appreciating, first of all, that you've discovered the difference of what you like and you don't like, and always enjoying the experience, regardless of if it is or isn't your favorite type of running course. These running challenges and incorporating running and traveling do bring a whole other dimension. So I was very excited to have a fellow runner, traveler, and Alphabet Challenge goal setter on the podcast to tell her story. And for the record, I am still in need of the letters A, I, Q, V, W, and Y. So, of course, you can keep up with Andrea through her Instagram account, Silver Cloud Adventures. And I will tell you, her photos are absolutely gorgeous. So go ahead and follow along. I will put the link to that account in the show notes, so please look there. And I want to thank you so much for listening. I love making this podcast, and I know that the power of these stories rests in you being here and you listening to them. And I'm going to ask a favor, and that is if you will rate and review the show and share this episode or the podcast as a whole with someone else you know would enjoy these stories too. Thank you again. That does bring me to the end of this episode. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I am the host and producer of Women's Running Stories, and I wish you happy, joyful, healthy strides forward.
Women's running. Women's running stories.
There is no hood like parenthood. When you meet a fellow parent, you just kind of get each other on a whole nother level. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm a former CNN journalist, mom of 3, including twins, and host of That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast. I interview changemakers on their life lessons, legacy, and superpower of intuition, aka their mom sense and dad sense. I've had some pretty amazing parents on my show.
Hey, what's up? I'm Kelly Rowland. Hi, this is Chelsea Clinton. It's me, Bobby Brown. Can't wait to share my story.
Episodes release every Thursday. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Join my tribe at that'stotalmomsense.com and follow me on Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you.